Common Knowledge is brought to you by our friends at Game Grid Midvale, our local game store who puts players first with weekly competitive events, below market pricing, and the best customer service available. Check out their online inventory using the link in our description.
We are also sponsored by inkgaming.com. Use coupon code CCMTG10 at checkout for a 10% discount on all inked gaming supplies and accessories. You can support the show directly through Patreon at patreon.com/common knowledge.
This is the Common Knowledge Podcast. It's not about the cost, it's about the knowledge. Here are your hosts, Brandon Clark and Lobbert.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. I'm the host, he's the co-host. This is the podcast.
I'm Lobbert, you're Brandon.
All right, we're Common Knowledge, and that's Common Knowledge. How you been?
I've been pretty good. How have you been?
Pretty good. I'm excited to record episode 80 of Common Knowledge.
How's your week been? I don't want to skip past this entirely.
I don't know, it sucks. I started school full time again.
I only wanted to hear good news, Brandon.
And I go to school all day, Monday through Thursday, all day. I leave my home at 9 a.m., drive to Salt Lake, and then I return from Salt Lake around 11.
Oof.
Yeah. But that's okay, because I have no school on Friday and Saturday. So I work all day.
Oof.
On those days.
I couldn't, yeah. You're always doing stuff I couldn't do. I need time to not do things.
Well, that's what Sunday's for.
Well, we're recording a podcast.
Yeah,
hooray!
That's just fun. That's just good fun. Yeah, and I'm battling a cold, so.
Well, my week it was pretty okay, but I've been trying to brew but oh my gosh, I just have had that's what I want to do, but I have zero inspiration, and I've just been going through all of the cards that I've been looking at, and start a brew, and I'm just this is terrible. Start a new one. This is also terrible. So, no luck on that front, but I think I'm going to go back to playing Boggles or something, so that, I don't know, I can feel like I'm doing something constructive.
Start beating on people?
Yeah.
All those people that are trying to be funny and cute with their 4-color decks?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, in other fun time news, we have a giveaway.
Yeah, it's our Patreon giveaway.
Yeah, so we're super excited, and the winner of this month's giveaway, drumroll, Sean. Your drum. That wasn't even a drum roll. That wasn't. Well, that's not the way that I would have wanted to but announce Kurt Thompson as the winner of this month's giveaway. But that's all Sean had to give.
I was gonna add a real one in post.
Oh.
So you just sound stupid. You're just that perfect drum roll was not good enough.
There's this incredible drum roll and fanfare, and I'm just jeez, ugh, that sucked.
Pretty much. But
congratulations to Kurt Thompson. Thank you for your patronage and your support.
Tell him what he's winning, Brandon.
Oh, he's winning something?
Yeah, we're giving him something.
So we are going to be sending you a playset of Ephemerate, Ashnod's Altar, Hidden Spider, and Trinket Mage.
Trinket Mage? Has that been a card of the week yet?
Oh, well, not yet. It will be in a couple minutes. Is it time for card of the week?
Pretty much.
All right. Thank you again, Kurt. You are awesome.
Card of the week.
Cool. So I'm assuming the deep voice just said card of the week.
Yeah.
So, Trinket Mage. Sean, tell us about Trinket Mage. What is this card?
So, Trinket Mage is one of my favorite cards of all time. But
tell me more right now.
It is 3 mana, 2/2. It costs 2 generic and a blue. It is a human wizard. It says, when Trinket Mage enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact with converted mana cost 1 or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library.
Do you know what artifact has converted mana cost 1 or less?
Viridian Longbow?
Do you know what else has converted mana cost 1 or less? Skull Clamp.
That's not Popper.
Oh, okay. So what's going on with this card right now? Why is this our card of the week?
So this is creeping its way into these Jeskai lists and some Tron lists. Not all of them are playing it, but when they are playing it, they're playing it with Arkham's Astrolabe. We just got the best target that you could really ask for with Arkham's Astrolabe.
What about Skull Clamp? Would that be better than Arkham's Astrolabe?
It would be better than literally any card we have in Pauper.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
But yeah, the Trinket Mage goes and gets that, and that's good. Don't get me wrong, but it adds versatility to your deck in that this can go get artifact lands, since you can also get things that cost 0. For the Tron decks, they have the option of getting their Expedition map. So if they're struggling to get Tron, and the turns are progressing, and they're just like, okay, well, this Trinket Mage is just going to go get my Expedition map, it can definitely do that. And then I really like to go get Relic of Progenitus with this.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the better targets in Jeskai decks when you have access to like one relic.
Yeah, and the 2/2 body isn't horrible. It doesn't fly or anything, sure, but that's a 2. It's a 2-for-1 basically. Like if you cast Trinket Mage, cast the artifact, 4 mana, 2/2, draw a card. Really, that's perfectly serviceable. I think there might be better options in Jeskai, but I actually haven't played a whole lot of that deck. Do you have any opinions in that deck on whether Trinket Mage fits or not?
In that deck specifically, I don't like Trinket Mage for the reason of Tron is such a bad matchup. Even having access to a relic in game 1 isn't always enough. I feel like Tron can fight through relic pretty well now, especially with Ephemerate, being a major piece in that deck. They just get so much value out of Ephemerate before relic even matters. So my thought is that you can put Trinket Mage and Relic of Progenitus in your deck, make your deck a little more clunky, like a little less streamlined, give yourself a couple more percentage points in the Tron matchup, which is already just such an abysmal matchup anyway.
Yeah.
That, for me personally, I feel like take the Trinket Mage out, take the Relic out of the main deck, just like give yourself the best matchup you can in the mirror and against all the other linear strategies that are trying to go around right now, and kind of just accept that Tron is going to be a really tough matchup. Still winnable, but going to be tough.
Yeah, and I have noticed that with Relic, and I think that the Trinket Mage only goes in that deck if you're also main decking the Relic. Relic, it's just not, it doesn't work against Ephemerate the way, like in a great way. Like if they're putting it on a Mole Drifter, they've already drawn 4 cards off of the Ephemerate and 2 cards off of the Mole Drifter, like if that makes sense, before you can even grab it. And then, what if something goes wrong? They grab it out of their graveyard at instant speed because they have another guy out and they Ephemerate again. I don't know. Like, it just seems like at that point the game is lost. Attacking their graveyard is hard, but it's also a control matchup, and you do have time to worry about things like them getting back an Ephemerate after they've already drawn 6 cards.
Yeah. I think that your best game plan against Tron is have a lot of Seeker of the Way in your deck and play one on turn 2 and try to play one on turn 3.
Yeah.
That's like your best hope of winning that. And then hopefully you can get there with a Lightning Bolt or 2 to finish them off.
And I do hate to say, like, Trinket Mage is a great card, and I just think that these decks are really tight. I wanted to make it the card of the week because it's an interesting point of, like, a card that could be in those decks or couldn't. And being a card of the week, I feel like it kind of should be like, oh, no, put this in your deck. But we're kind of saying, like, maybe not. Right? Is that where we're at?
I think that's where I'm at. Don't put it in your deck right now.
Okay, still a great thing to bring up, and we'll give a listener some Trinket Mages that they shouldn't put in their deck.
All right.
Main topic.
Well, so this is August Power Rankings. We skipped Power Rankings in last show because we wanted to try to talk about Vegas things while it was still fresh-ish
Mhm.
in our minds. So we kind of skipped it, and we're gonna just pick it back up this week. So August power rankings.
Oh,
Let's get into it.
one quick thing before we do. This happened a couple weeks ago, and I I forgot to put it in last week's show, and it's kind of I don't want it to get too stale. Somebody messaged me when I was playing in the tournament practice room, and I always want to shout those people out, just because I think it's cool to like show up in a tournament practice and somebody's like, "Hey, I know who you are, and I appreciate your content." Hellman 911 was playing Boggles in tournament practice, and so just shout out to that guy. That's the only thing I have. So let's get into the August power rankings.
All right, let's do it. All right, August power rankings. For those unfamiliar or new to the show, what we're doing here is we have a points-based system that we use to assign points to deck lists that have a top 32 finish in leagues. And they receive points based on their placing. So top 8, obviously more points. 9th through 32, less points, etc. So
I think you said leagues, but yeah, in the challenge.
Oh, challenges. Yeah, sorry, not leagues, challenges. So our first deck with 57 points is the Jeskai 4-color Astro Snow decks.
Right, and we did decide to break out this deck and the Astrohawk decks with Glinthawk. I just feel like that's like an important distinction because that actually affects how you sideboard against this deck. At least that's just myself. And like one is more control and the other one is more mid-range. I think there's a lot of overlap. But yeah, 57 points with the 4-color snow version, still the best deck in the format. If you bundle them together, we'll get to that when we get to
Astrohawk.
Astrohawk.
Yeah. But yeah, 57 points. That's a lot of points. I think this deck is just far and away the best deck in the format. It has that really bad Tron matchup, but it's sort of balanced out by
it's a great matchup with most everything else.
Yeah, sorry. I got a text message from my boss, like as I was in the middle of my thought. But yeah, it has such good matchups against all the linear decks, all the aggressive decks in the format, and Tron struggles against a lot of those decks. So there's kind of this rock, paper, scissors of Tron beats up on these Astrolabe Ephemerate decks, and the Astrolabe Ephemerate decks beat up on a lot of the aggressive strategies. There's a few of them in there that are rough. For instance, like Boggles and Heroic. Those matchups can be really, really difficult. But for the most part, I feel like this deck is favored against every other deck in the field minus Tron. And even then, it's not... I said it's pretty bad, but I think it's like 40-60. Like Tron's probably like 60% in the matchup.
Yeah, but that feels way worse than everything else because you have either 50-50 or positive matchups. I think that the reason this Jeskai Snow deck is it's the top deck right now is not only is it doing something powerful and it can interact with pretty much everything, your ability to hate that deck out is like it's so hard to actually interact. There's no hoser. It's like when we were talking about back when Skred Delver was the best deck. It's whatever you're boarding in, they can just counterspell it, and even if you're boarding in something that does interact with it and it doesn't get countered, there's just not that many cards that interact with the spells they cast in favorable ways. Like the fact that they have a bunch of white creatures instead of blue creatures means that they land something and your Pyroblasts don't really matter anymore. Like those are just flat dead cards and you have to find something else to interact with them. And I just have to ask after every time we speak about this deck, since you play it so much, is that how you feel about it?
Yeah, I think this deck is really hard to sideboard against. There's not like a single card that just hoses. There's not anything really like that. Like Pyroblasts are... Honestly, I think Pyroblasts are worse than Dispels in a lot of cases.
Because of that Ephemerate, right?
Yeah, because of that Ephemerate. But you also need to be able to counter Mole Drifters.
Yeah,
The
and
power blasts are good there. So like this deck just has so many angles, like attacks on so many different axes. Like they'll just beat you down with 2-3 flyers, or they're just gonna outcard advantage you with Muldrifter and Ephemerate, and then you need to be able to counter Muldrifters or Chaomancers, but at the same time you need to be able to counter their Screds, their Dispels, their Counterspells, their Ephemerates. And that's really hard to do with just like, okay, I have Pyroblasts and I have Hydroblasts. So I feel like you want some Dispels in there too, to bring in against this deck, which is why I'm playing a Dispel in my main deck.
yeah, if you're blue, but who's blue anymore? Like, there's mono blue Delver, and that's about it. Like, I guess and Tron.
The other Jeskai decks are blue.
Oh, I don't care. Like, I'm talking about if you're a different deck.
Oh, if you're a different deck,
Yeah.
just try to go fast.
Yeah. So basically, if you're trying to go fast, that's not really something you do in your sideboard. Like, I would almost like. Brandon watched me in Vegas slowly lose my mind trying to figure out how to sideboard against Jeskai Snow.
You just can't.
Yeah, no, I overboarded. I just switched out which things I was boarding in, like just because I was like, I have to hate this deck out. That's the only way I'm going to be able to beat it. And it just ended up being like the answer is like, no, put those sideboard slots against your other matchups and just realize that your main deck is the best it's going to be because it's the most aggressive version of your deck.
Yeah. Thinking about in my head of sideboard cards, the best one that I can think of is Hidden Spider.
Yeah.
As far as like can just host this deck. But even that is kind of like suspect. Like I've had games where my opponent casts Hidden Spider and it just absolutely rocked me. Like I'm just staring at like a Muldrifter and 2-core Skyfishers with no other real meaningful ways of interaction. And I'm just like, oh man. I play my 2-3 to block all their 2-2s, but I give them a 3-5? Ugh. So, but then I've also had games where they're just like Hidden Spider on turn 1, and I'm just like, all right, yeah, Seeker of the Way. All right, Seeker of the Way. Okay.
Lone Missionary.
Bolt this, Preordain. And then this Hidden Spider just sits there, and I'm just like, I'm really glad that wasn't a Savage Swipe or something like relevant.
Yeah.
So it's super hit or miss with that card.
Yeah. One thing I found that I can interact, and I have to make sure that I'm not boarding out some of my aggressive pieces, is things like Duress and Castigate are pretty good here. The best way to keep them from out advantaging you and maybe help them stumble a little bit is to like Duress away that Ephemerate so that you're not getting 6 for 1 or whatever, or Castigate away their Muldrifter. Like that actually works. And I've tested Blightning and stuff against them. It can't just be any kind of discard. You have to pick out the card that matters because they have so much fluff in their hand because of their advantage.
Yeah. Okay, so that is the boogeyman of the format. Jeskai, 4-color, Astro, Snow, mid-range thing.
Yeah, it's people. We don't have a great name for this yet. I want to just call it like Ephemerate Snow, but that's just me like coming up with my own name for the deck because people call it Jeskai Control or whatever, but it's 4 colors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, is it 4 colors? I mean, yeah, it's 4 colors, but like it's only got Pulse of Marasa. Like that's the only green card. It's like Pulse of Marasa, and then sometimes they flash back Ancient Grudge.
Yeah, that's why I'm like not like freaking out that Jessica's a terrible name. That's what I want to call it.
Yeah, it's just it's weird. I've heard some people call it Snow Go, which is catchy, but I hate because this isn't really a tap like a land go deck,
Yeah, it has a bunch of creatures it plays at sorcery speed as well as astrolabes.
Yeah, so I think that like Jeskai or like 4-color Snow Ephemerate mid-range thing is probably whatever.
Yeah, that's
anyway. We've spent a lot of time on this. So second place, 38 points, Marasa Tron.
Yeah, there is a lot of Tron. Like I would suspect that even with the amount of Tron we see here, there was a lot that didn't make the top 32. Like when I've been playing leagues and tournament practice, and the small sample sizes and all that, but yeah, tons and tons of Tron, like different
I mean,
variants of
one
Ephemerate.
one to two a league, and that's
Hmm?
like I feel like the average. You play against like 1 to 2 Tron decks a league. For me, that's been my average.
Yeah,
Like I don't think I've played a league where I didn't play against at least one Tron deck in like recent weeks.
yeah, and I feel like when the top two decks can be as varied within their own archetypes as these, just it does make it really hard to know exactly what to do, you know?
I mean, Tron is a little bit easier to sideboard against in that like it is trying to do something somewhat unfair and linear, and you can target that a lot
Yeah,
easier than you can target the Jeskai decks that are just being very fair with just everything in their deck is a 2-for-1 and is efficient and resilient. This deck, Marasatron, has a bit of, it's a little clunky. Sometimes it'll stumble on finding the mana it needs. Sometimes it'll have a bunch of Tron lands, but it can't filter all the colors it needs. And a lot of the aggressive decks in the format can really take advantage of that. The aggressive red decks have Molten Rains. So there's just I think there's a lot more ways to fight Tron, which is why I think we see it in second place and not in that first place spot, despite how good its matchup is against the number one deck.
yeah, but big mana decks like this, I think, are going to bubble to the top more often than not. Like we've seen metas where Tron doesn't do well, and those have also been the same metas where aggressive decks aren't doing well. But we're like even the aggressive decks are typically turn 5 decks. Like they can be turn 4, but it's typically turn 5, and turn 5 is enough time for them to really assemble something cool, like play a Denrova horror. That's gonna stop most things, and if it doesn't, then like they've probably done a couple things before then that slowed you down, and they just have great ways to buy time. Like there's nothing wrong with being on Tron right now,
Yeah.
except your matches take a long time, but that's also true of Jeskai Snow.
Yeah, definitely. I think Tron has tons of tools to fight back. I just think it probably loses to itself a lot more than Jeskai decks do. Um,
That's true.
like I said, again, it's easier to hate out with those sideboard cards. So when you think that you're putting pressure on them with your mono red deck, your burn deck, you're putting a ton of pressure on Tron, and then you're also like Molten Rain, one of your lands. So you're like disrupting them, still furthering your game plan. There's just a lot of stuff like that out there that the aggressive decks can do to fight against Tron.
Yeah, that's why it's gonna definitely have a hard time taking the number one slot. Like I
Right.
feel like there's this weird this inverse relationship where the better Jeskai decks get, the better Tron decks get. But if Tron gets too good, it can't sustain that because there's less Jeskai decks.
Yeah.
So there is like a kind of a balancing act there, and that's kind of where the rock paper scissors comes in. But I just think, yeah, Tron has the disadvantage of there are more negative matchups.
Agreed. All right. Third place on 30 points, we have Stompy.
It is good to see Stompy here, and I feel like it deserves it with how good Savage Swipe is. Like when we discuss this deck, that's always what we're talking about is how good Savage Swipe is.
How is Stompy and Tron? I imagine it's close to 50-50. Like if
Oh,
Tron even stumbles a little bit, Stompy probably runs it over. But if Tron can go like Moment's Peace and like you said, like a Denrova horror or something, Stompy may have a rough time.
yeah, I still think Stompy is positive against Tron, but it is important to consider that these Tron decks play Stonehorn Dignitary a lot of the time. Stompy has no reach, and Stompy's like an aggressive deck, but it's not the fastest thing you've ever seen. I think what gives it points right now is that Savage Swipe is gonna clear the board of anything standing in its way. Like a Seagate Oracle isn't like a very good option to stop an aggressive deck right now. Like if you're thinking of like you're giving them a good target for their Savage Swipe, it doesn't really the Seagate Oracle doesn't do that many good things against like Affinity, and maybe it'll buy you a turn against Boggles. Definitely still positive, but yeah, it's It's losable. Like, Stompy stumbles.
Yeah, it does. In that vein, though, I feel like there's a divide in the Marasatron decks on which decks play Stonehorn Dignitary right now. And I feel like if more Tron decks played Stonehorn Dignitary, things would be tougher for Stompy.
Yeah. The ability for Tron to just, once it has a Stonehorn, to play like an Ephemerate, because I think if you're playing Stonehorn, you're probably in white and you're going to be doing something there, and Ephemerate's just a great card. So yeah, I do think that if they played more Stonehorns, that Stompy would suffer, but then they have to worry about all of the burn and affinity decks that don't care about Stonehorn. So I think there's a lot of angles that Tron is being attacked by things like this, and Stompy benefits the most, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and probably the Jeskai decks too, because they don't have to worry about as much Tron.
That's true.
All right. 4th place, 23 points. This is Astrohawk. So the big differences here being that these play Glint Hawks. They're generally more artifacts, so you'll see Prophetic Prisms, usually 2 is what I've seen, in addition to the 4 Astrolabes. And very rarely will you see a 4th color, because the Astrohawk decks need to be playing artifact lands in addition to snow lands, so that they're, Glint Hawk's not dead.
Yeah, and I think these are the lists that you're more likely to see Trinket Mage. Like, the more you see Trinket Mage, or the more you see Glint Hawk, you're probably going to see Trinket Mage more. Is that true?
I think so, because you want artifact lands in your Trinket Mage deck anyway, just for that corner case scenario of I need to hit a land drop, so go get my artifact land. And so those kind of just like tie hand in hand with each other. Playing artifact lands to make your Glint Hawks more consistent, and having extra targets for Trinket Mage.
Yeah. I'm trying to see which matchups I think would change. Like, I think having a more aggressive plan, like with Glint Hawks, your Tron matchup would improve, and I would expect your Stompy matchup is also improves, but I don't think that needed a lot of help. Also, like Mono Blue Delver and things.
Yeah, I think just having an extra blocker goes a long way in having that 1 power 2/2 creature to kind of help you get off the ground against Tron.
Yeah,
just having more threats, you're more likely to open a hand with a creature that you can play on turn 2 than the other Jeskai decks that are gonna probably have to mulligan a little more to try to find like Seeker of the Way to try to get there against Tron.
Yeah, it feels like Astrohawk versus the control list. It seems like it's better against a lot of the field, but it's just not
Jeskai at range. Yeah,
yeah, the mirror.
The Jeskai control is better against the Astrohawk deck.
Yeah, and I think it's safest to probably just gear for that mirror. Like, always try to take down the top deck, even if you are playing the top deck.
Yeah, which is, we talked about the changes I made to my deck before the Pauper Championships, which were just to cut the Aven Rift Watchers and just make my deck better against the mirror.
Yeah, I completely stand by that decision of yours.
All right, 5th place.
One more point I don't think we talked about, and we said we would. So Astrohawk has 23 and Jeskai has 57. Together, that's 80. So overall, that's up 5 points from last week. So if we group those together, Jeskai has 80 points and Marasatron has 38 is the next highest. So that's...
Which is pretty insane. I mean...
Yeah.
We are kind of splitting hairs here by differentiating Jeskai and Astrohawk, because at the end of the day, these are all Ephemerate Astrolabe decks.
Yeah.
There are some distinct differences, but yeah, I mean, they're very, very, very close to the same thing.
And Blue-Black Delver... I'm bringing it there, guys. Blue-Black Delver, the month it got banned, did have 117 points, so we're not there, but all of the months leading up to it, it had 65, 54, 52 points. So up until we decided that it was a problem, it was below this, and I think this is going to consistently be around here. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Fifth place, 22 points. We have a tie between Burn and Mono Blue Delver.
So Mono Blue Delver is back. That is a little bit surprising, but after seeing how good Spellstutter Sprite is in the Mirror of Jeskai, it's still a really good card, and if they're bouncing an Astrolabe and you hit that Astrolabe with your Spellstutter Sprite, I would imagine that's pretty good, and they kind of have to stop where they're at. They are slower decks. Anything playing Mole Drifter is definitely going to be a slower deck. If they get that countered, that's bad news bears for them.
Yeah. So I think that the Mono Blue Jeskai matchup is atrocious for Mono Blue.
Yeah.
I against, like, you can't really tempo out the Glint Hawk Core Skyfisher deck very well, and this deck has way more card advantage than you ever have. You might get a hit in with Ninja the Deep Hours, but I don't care. I'm just going to draw way more cards than you on my next turn. Thanks for tapping out to put your Ninja, your 2/2 into play,
Yeah, all the creatures are smaller, for sure.
Yeah, I think that playing Mono Blue Delver in this metagame is probably a mistake, except for that you have decent matchups against like decks like Burn, Red Deck Wins, stuff like
Boggles.
that. Boggles, you have a good matchup. You just kind of beat up on all of the aggressive unfair decks, I guess. And your Tron matchup isn't horrible. Like, you can just kind of swarm them with little creatures, have a bunch of counter spells, and kind of tempo out Tron. I personally would not recommend anyone playing Delver of Secrets in their deck, though. Right now.
Okay, because they do need to they very much need to close those games out quickly, because the long game doesn't favor them. They are a tempo deck, so I may give this a shot and regret it, but I might give it a shot anyway this week.
For science.
Yeah,
I feel the same way about Burn. I think that Burn is sort of in the middle. Like, this is right where Burn belongs on our power rankings.
Yeah.
It's got some good matchups here and there. It's great against Tron. You can get there against the Jeskai decks. You draw a couple Searing Blazes and don't let them connect with Seeker of the Way, and you've probably got a really good shot of winning that game. It's just fine. I think Burn's just fine.
Yeah.
I think that if you are playing Burn, you can expect to kind of be middle of the pack. We'll see it top 8 here and there, but it's not going to be, dumb. It's not going to be, just ravaging the format.
I do think that there could be a Burn could definitely get some more percentage points if they started playing more Orcish Hellraiser, in my opinion. That
card's
card,
very good.
Yeah, that card is really, really good. And not enough people, I think, are main decking that card. I've also thought, like, maybe I'll go back to playing Burn and I'll main deck that. And
not start like main decking.
Main deck that card.
Ooh, you heard it here first, folks.
And it's untested. But, like, I did see somebody in the Pauper Premier League main deck some of these, and I was just like, that looks good. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a constant discussion about whether Curse of the Purest Heart is good or not, and I'm not confident that that's the cut, but maybe it is.
I could see. So when I've played Burn, and I played 2 leagues with Burn Friday morning. Or yesterday morning. I can't remember when, but I just played 2 leagues, and I finished them both in under an hour, so that was incredible. Like, for one, that's just, I think, something to say about the health of our format right now compared to where it was. The fact that I can get onto Magic Online, and within 30 seconds, I'm paired in a match.
Yeah,
Instead
yeah.
17, 20 minutes we used to have to wait. And then the person we get paired with would just drop because they were trying to
pair with their win trade, yeah.
Yeah, win trade or whatever. Yeah. Oh, so anyway, that's off the topic. But Curse of the Pierced Heart always feels so like it's either the best card in the matchup or it's the worst card in your deck. Like, like I'll get paired against Tron and I'm like, oh, I'm really glad I have this curse that I can run out. And then it's so hard for them to interact with, even if they find ways to counter the rest of your burn spells, kill all your creatures. The curse is going to kill them before they can kill them.
That's perfect. So,
but I've played against Stompy or like elves, and that curse is just awful. You don't want to draw it. It's the first thing you're boarding out. And I could see in those matchups having a card like Orcish Hellraiser would be so good. And I think Orcish Hellraiser would also be equally as good in the matchups where Curse is good. Like having that 3/2 that attacks, it's a huge body that attacks and it still deals that damage. Against Tron, like I like to have early threats. Like I like to go like play a creature on turn 1, creature on turn 2, and then on turn 3 just like dump my hand with burn spells on them.
Yeah. So from the way you're describing it, if something is that polarized of like curse is good, curse is bad, maybe that should be in a sideboard. Orcish Hellraiser, I feel like is just more flat okay. Like the worst case scenario is that Tron plays Stonehorn Dignitary, and it's just never dealing damage. Oh, woe is me. You can just let that Echo die. So there's like options, but like I also don't think that I'm boarding in Curse of the Pierced Heart. If it's a grindy matchup like that, maybe I'll just have Flame Rifts in my board or
that's what something. I was just like in my head thinking like if Curse gets cut from the main, it's just out of the 75.
Yeah.
Like I'm putting it in my sideboard. There are more impactful things I could put in my sideboard. And I do think that Hellraiser could be better.
Sweet, yeah. There's a million things I want to say about Orcish Hellraiser, but long story short, I think Burn is due for a change in deck makeup, and if it's a 22 now and if it gets better, maybe this beats out Stompy?
Yeah, potentially. All right, next. We on 6th place? Yeah, 6th place. 6th. I've never been able to say that word right.
I've noticed.
6th place.
6th. That's what you usually say.
How do you say it?
6th.
Isn't that what I said? 6th.
Yeah, you're missing like an S almost.
6th.
Yeah, so like usually most people say it. Basically, it would be SICSTH. That's how most people say it, and you just leave out that S. It's just SICTH.
6th. 6th.
I don't know anymore.
6th place. Place number 6. 19 points. Red deck wins, or Goblins at this point. It's safe to say that this is Goblins. It's playing. There was only one deck that got classified in here that didn't have Goblin Grenade in it.
Huh. Did it have Orcish Hellraiser? Where's Orc Grenade? Anyway.
Orcish Oriflame. Is that a common?
What the...
I got him. Stump the Lobbert.
How do I spell that? SICTH. Attacking creatures you control get +1/+0. Period. All right.
But it's Orcish, so.
No, yeah. Oh, this is definitely a common.
All right. Yep. Red deck wins.
So,
I think this is a worse burn deck in most cases, right?
I would agree with that. It's not huge. The points aren't very much gone. Like I do respect Goblin Grenade. Isn't it kind of funny that people were saying that card should stay banned? Like
no. So I think we were both on the page of like, is that a joke?
Yeah.
Spellstutter Sprite's like the best card in the format when this shakeup was happening. It's like how do you ever Goblin Grenade a Spellstutter Sprite deck?
Yeah.
You just don't. That's how I feel about Goblin Grenade in general right now. there are dispels running around, tons of hydroblasts, counter spells. Not to mention, there's just so much life gain, just random life gain. Pulsamarasa's Secret of the Ways, Lone Missionaries. Like, I just can't imagine playing red deck wins against a deck with Lone Missionary and Ephemerate.
And just a PSA. I can't believe how many people don't know this. Goblin Grenade is a sorcery. So if you're just PSA, Goblin Grenade is a sorcery.
Oh, I thought it was an instant.
Are you for reals with me right now?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned Dispel.
Oh. Okay, well, you're included in this PSA. I didn't even notice that, and it's just so many people.
Ever in my life cast a Goblin Grenade or have a Goblin Grenade cast against me. It's just never been a relevant card.
Yeah.
So I know that you sack a Goblin, it's a red mana, it deals 5 damage.
Yeah.
I just assumed it was an instant, but it's a sorcery. This card is way worse than I thought it was, and I already thought it was bad.
Yeah, like you can electricure your opponent, and they lose a lot of their goblins, and then they're left with Goblin Grenades, and they have to get rid of their good goblins, and gain some life. It's over at that point. So it's both a worse Stompy deck and a worse burn deck, just kind of smashed together, and that's my general feelings on it. It's Tron matchup though. That feels real good.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine this deck can ever lose to Tron. Like, smash, 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 like Stonehorn Dignitary, and they're like, Goblin Grenade you, Goblin Grenade you. Oh, yeah. But I had 7 mana.
14 or whatever. All that being said, it's not a horrible deck. It's one of the best decks in the format, in fact. The 6th best, in fact. But
7th, because we had a 2-way tie
between Burn and Mono Blue.
Yeah.
But okay, like,
also I don't believe that it is better in this format than Boggles.
I would agree with you there. Like, Boggles and even Heroic, I would say, are probably better options. They're just not being played a whole lot because they're just, you put things down in a certain order. You could build a bot that played Boggles pretty decently.
Yeah, I think that's a stupid mentality. People have this, like, just Modern has this, where people are like, I'm going to play my blue-white deck because I have Cryptic Command, and it makes me make decisions, and I made better decisions, and I won. And it's like, don't be dumb. Just, like, kill your opponent really fast. It's Modern. And sometimes Pauper is that way, too.
Yeah.
Like,
all Magic is like that, but, like, we are playing a game, and it's supposed to be fun, and the decisions are fun.
Yeah, but, like, winning is fun, too.
Yes.
I don't know. I think if you, like, want to optimize your chances to win tournaments, you need to just ditch that mentality of, I'm going to give myself the most options because I'll outplay my opponents, which is just, like, not true unless you're, like, Marcio Carvalho or, like, Ben Stark. You're just...
Yeah. Like, or you could just show up and have a pile of 75 cards that is just really well placed, and you don't have to make these decisions. Your opponent is sitting there racking their brain, and you're just like, all right, do I get on tap with my 17-17? Is that a thing that happens?
Plus, like,
you're right.
Tournament League is a real thing, and
like,
you're not playing Boggles, or if you're playing Boggles, and again, I'm not going to say that Boggles has 0 decisions, because obviously I think of Boggles like I think of Burn, or like I think of a deck like Storm. A lot of people, I play Storm in Modern, and people are like, oh man, that deck's hard. And it's just like, it's really not. Like, there are deterministic kills and there are non-deterministic kills. Basically, all I need to know is if I cast Gifts Ungiven, will I have 2 red mana floating? I win. That's all you need to know when you play Storm.
Yeah.
And, decks like Boggles and Burn and stuff like that are all very similar, and it's just like, I need to know how to sequence properly, and I need to understand what I'm playing around. Other than that, my deck plays itself. And so you're just eliminating this entire other line from your mental process. The only things you have to process are sequencing your spells properly, and playing around the things that your opponents can do to disrupt you.
And stop putting stupid cards in your deck that make it worse.
Like Curse of the Pierce Heart? What are we talking about? I feel like you have a
Like-
specific card in mind.
Like the person I saw put Vines of Vastwood in their Boggles list. Like just random people that are like, I'm gonna brew up my deck, and I'm just like, what the heck? Why are, huh?
Yeah, don't put Vines of the Vastwood in your Boggles deck. You don't need it.
Yeah, put
Vines and put in more enchantments to
Yeah.
put on your proof creatures. Your creatures that cannot be targeted by spells your opponents control already.
yeah. So if you're afraid of just about Boggles of, if you're afraid of getting like Electric Reed, put in Mutagenic Growth. That is actually really, really good. And if you also need different toughness pumpers, Spider Umbra.
Yeah. I love Umbras in general. I'm actually surprised Spider Umbra doesn't get more play.
It definitely should. Like when you're playing, I've played a lot of Boggles. When you play Boggles, one of the most important things is, do I have a toughness pumper? Once I have a toughness pumper, my decisions become really, really easy. And if you can play a 1-mana 1, that's almost just better than like a Rancor.
Boom, boom. So we just spent a lot of time talking about Boggles and have totally skipped the 7th place deck. Boggles was the 8th place deck.
With 14 points.
Somehow we just got off onto a Boggles tangent after talking about, we were supposed to have been talking about red deck wins.
Yeah.
So 15 points Affinity. Personally, I feel like Affinity is a little low on this list.
I also feel that way. There's some crazy Affinity lists I've seen where like I've seen Astro Affinity that just can put in Gearseeker Serpents into play.
Yeah, they're just the big stuff Affinity deck. Like there's no Myr Enforcers or Frogmites. It's just
I've seen Enforcers in there, but they cut the Frogmites. Like
okay.
they're all over the place. That might be one of the reasons why there's not more Affinity. There's not like a unified list, but I think it's kind of hard to go wrong with how powerful that deck is.
Yeah, I played against it was Core Skyfishers, Gearseeker Serpents, Seeker of the Way, Atogs. Like that was like the creature lineup. And then it was just like a bunch of artifacts. Like, just Chromatic Stars, Chromatic Spheres, Astrolabes, Prophetic Prisms, 4 Thoughtcasts, 4 Galvanic Blasts. It felt really powerful.
You say Metallic Rebuke? Because that was what I experienced in that too. And...
yeah, Metallic Rebuke is there.
Oh, jeez.
I wish... So I played against it. I was playing Burn, and I played against it, and just got spanked by this deck. And then I kind of like noted my opponent's name, and I went and was like looking through the trophy lists, and he was one of the higher up trophy earners. I can't remember who the player was. I guess I shouldn't say he either, but yeah.
I faced Carves doing it.
It wasn't Carves.
Oh, okay. I think it was Carves.
It was a different name. I don't remember who this person was, what the person's name was, but I do remember they had I think they were in like the 4 to 5 trophy range.
Okay.
But yeah, that deck was really cool.
Yeah, I've lost against that Affinity list a few times. It was one of the decks that I was really afraid of going to Vegas. I packed my Gorilla Shamans, and I never played against Affinity, and they did nothing. Actually, I blew up a couple of lands against Astrohawk. Anyway, for honorable mentions, I did want to just mention the next
Heroic.
3 decks, actually. Like, let's just make this a top 11.
Sure. So that was our top 8. Let's recap the top 8 though super quick, since we were kind of out and all over the place. So first place, Jeskai, 4-color Ephemerate decks. Second place, Mirasatron. Third place, Stompy. Fourth place, Astrohawk. The 5th place, tie between Burn and Mono Blue Delver. 6th place, Red Deck wins. 7th place, Affinity. And 8th place, Boggles on 14 points.
Okay, so then 9th place, that's where our heroic deck lives. This is the first time that it's made an appearance since the start of the new year. I guess there are those 2 months where we weren't tracking, so I can't say that for 100%. But this is the first time it's been on it's been on our sheet, so I thought that was noteworthy. Heroic is great. When all these people are trying to play Skred, you just play a 1-mana 4/4 or a 0/4, and then it just gets worse for your opponent from there. Uh, like the deck does have some weaknesses. Tron with its Stonehorn Dignitaries probably isn't great.
So I personally believe that Boggles could just be the best deck in the format. Boggles are heroic. They're so good against the Jeskai decks. They're so good against all these other, silly, unfair decks. They do have... Their problem is they just have a couple of just atrocious matchups. Like Elves is just awful. Like these decks can never beat like a Well-Wisher, or what's the one that gains life?
Essence Warden?
Essence Warden. Thank you. I knew it was one of the
I wanted to say Well-Wisher a second time.
It was the Soul Sister Wardens. Yeah, Essence Warden. Like those decks have a really hard time beating that. Tron is a terrible matchup for these decks.
Well, Boggles. My stats say that Tron is a little bit positive.
Really?
Yes.
But have you played Boggles since they had Astrolabe and have started playing more Dignitaries?
That
because that changes things a lot.
Honestly, these are old stats.
Also, like a lot of Tron decks are playing Weather the Storm, which helps quite a bit in getting them to their Stonehorn lock. I think that you're right if we go back to Tron of, the Blue-Black Delver era, the Skred Delver era. But where we are at now, I can't believe that Boggles is favorable against Tron.
Okay.
It could
I'm not sure.
Closer than I believe it is. I can't imagine it's favored with... It has to battle through tons of extra life gain, Moment's Peace, and Stonehorn Dignitary Ephemerate locks.
Yeah, there's so many decks I need to play now. I don't know.
It needs to be done.
But let's move on. Actually, I don't care about talking about the next one too much. It's Elves.
I think this deck is pretty mediocre right now. It's not got a great Tron matchup. It's not got a very good burn matchup. The Stompy matchup is close. I think Elves might be slightly favored depending on play draw.
I want to say that it used to be Elves was favored. I want to say since Savage Swipe hit the meta, no. I'm going to say that Elves is I'm going to say that Stompy is the favor there for sure.
Yeah. I have yet to lose to Elves playing Jeskai.
Okay.
It's just kind of not even... I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it can be rough when they're Winding Way, drew 4 creatures, lead the Stampede, drew another bunch of creatures, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be tough to grind through. And then I grind through it and pull ahead and win, and it's whatever. I've yet to lose to it. I have not lost to Elves yet.
I honestly think that if that's the case, they might just want to go back to Distant Melody. Their insane draws, and when they go crazy, aren't near as crazy. It's faster, but not as big, and I thought that was how Elves did things. I
could agree with that. I think maybe going back to Distant Melody. I played against a couple Elves players in Vegas who were playing Distant Melodies, Lead the Stampedes, and Winding Ways.
Woof.
That sounds like a lot to me. I think that you're cutting back on something. I think that 4 Lead the Stampede, 2 Distant Melodies, almost just revert back to where we were before Winding Way was printed. I think what needs to be done.
Yeah, Winding Way just feels like you're just not doing enough. There's just so many cards in your deck that even if you're hitting 3 cards on your Winding Way, maybe that's not big enough to justify it. So I would like to talk about our last deck that we're going to talk about. Maybe keep going. White-Black Pestilence. I think that deck is could make a comeback as well. Castigate is great when they just play a bunch of Hawks and stuff. Nothing wrong with that. And they've for sure, it's a removal deck. They've got game against the aggressive decks. Red deck wins is, I think, going to be unwinnable for White-Black Pestilence. But anyway, the real last one I wanted to talk about is there were some Inside Out lists that did well in this last challenge.
Inside Out made a top 4.
Wow.
Wasn't just showed up, like, almost took down the entire tournament. It was interesting because there were 2 inside-out decks in this league, and there were no other inside-out decks in any of the other leagues, but this one league had 2. So yeah, 4th place, Paulo Cabral _BR. This was from the challenge on August 25th. So 4 Seeker of the Way, 4 Tireless Tribe, 2 Deep Analysis, 1 Merchant Scroll, 4 Ponder, 2 Preordain, 4 Brainstorm, 4 Circular Logic, 3 Dispel, 1 Dizzy Spell, 1 Giga Drowse, 4 Inside Out, 2 Muddle the Mixture, 1 Prismatic Strands, 3 Shadow Rift, 2 Whiteout.
The Whiteout. I've played against this, and holy crap, is it hard to stop them when they have Whiteout. If you're not familiar with that card, it is a colorless and a green for an instant. It says all creatures with flying lose flying until end of turn. That is completely irrelevant. It also says, if Whiteout is in your graveyard, you may sacrifice a snow-covered land to return Whiteout to your hand. This just means if it's in their graveyard, they pick it back up. Well, they sacrifice a land, pick it back up, discard it to Tireless Tribe. And do that over and over. Whiteout has effectively replaced Gush. And they don't have to bother with Tethmos High Priest. And the deck is actually really good. I had a really hard time beating it. And they're playing Merchant Scroll. That's cool. Somebody's playing Merchant Scroll.
Yeah. I thought that was sweet. Like, this deck has a lot of cool Merchant Scroll targets. I mean, Inside Out is one.
Yeah. But just like Giga Drowse, Dispel.
Yeah, Drowse, Dispel, Dizzy Spell, Muddle the Mixture, which is another weird, like, you can transmute, you can, like, Merchant Scroll to get Muddle the Mixture, and then you can transmute Merchant Scroll to go get Inside Out because you're cheeky.
But, yeah, if you need to, you can Merchant Scroll to get that Dizzy Spell, and then that Dizzy Spell goes and gets Tireless Tribe. But you can go...
Or you can get Muddle the Mixture, and Muddle the Mixture can go get Whiteout.
So they've got a lot of consistency now.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be something to watch out for again. Like, they're making it work.
Yeah, it sounds like I got to pick up some foil Tireless Tribes and Muddle the Mixture. Well, I need Muddle the Mixtures, but Inside Out.
But yeah, the other list doesn't even have Secret of the Way. Like, it's just straight 4 Whiteouts, and then 4 Tireless Tribes, 2 Merchant Scrolls, Deep Analysis, some other crap. It's sweet. I think that this has gone way too long, though. Our top 12. Yeah. So, do you wanna just sign off?
Let's close out.
End times.
All right, well, that's the show. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Common Knowledge. Again, big thank you to all of our great sponsors at inkgaming.com and Game Grid Midvale. Check out their online store in the link below, and don't forget about that coupon code CCMTG10, good for a 10% discount on all ink gaming supplies and accessories. You can find the show on PureMTGO.com, as well as the Constructed Criticism YouTube channel. You can also send us an email if you'd like to at commonknowledgemtg@gmail.com. We love your emails. We love reading them. You can find the show on Twitter at CKPodcastMTG, as well as our ever-growing Facebook group, Common Knowledge. And Sean, where can the listeners find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Lobbert8. That is Lobbert and the number 8, as well as YouTube. You can find me if you just search for Lobbert. I have videos of me playing Pauper, usually Pauper Leagues there. So check that out.
Boom. And you can find me also on Twitter at bclark_CK. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye forever.